G'day, folks. Hope we're all doing well. I'm here today with Mert Tansu. Now, Mert Tansu has a pretty awesome story, which gives some of us, or some people that maybe don't have all the skills with tools and that, some courage. So, Mert, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Give us a bit about your background, sort of lead us up right from the start. What got you into knives?
Bit of background. So what got me into knives is I was a professional chef, and when I got into cooking probably 15 years ago, and I got in the kitchens, and first thing you do as a young chef is you ask your head chef what to buy. And at that moment, my head chef, who was a German, he told me to buy this German knife set, and I bought the set he told me to, and I started to use the knives, and I'm thinking, first of all, the edges are not lasting long, and secondly, the knives are chunky. They're not cutting. Like when I'm trying to cut a carrot, instead of cutting the carrot, it's cracking. You can hear it, like there's a resistance. And I'm thinking, they have to be better than this. And I start sharpening the knives in a steeper angle. They're getting sharp, but at that point, it's not lasting the edge. I'm going crazy. I'm thinking like, there has to be something better than that. Then I start getting into better knives. I got myself a Japanese knife, like shuns, and back then they were hot. This is like 2005 or something. And I see the gradual improvement over what I was using, but I'm still thinking this knife is not comfortable here. It's very square at the spine. It's cutting my hand, and I'm thinking there has to be a better tool. So I end up buying handmade Japanese knives. They were fine, but I want a larger handle because I have larger hands. And I contacted the guys who are selling those knives. I'm like, man, I want to have this knife with a bigger handle. Can I get a bit more height at the heel? And they're like, no, this is the knife. You don't need that. I'm like, I want to get a custom one. So they're not doing custom. And I contacted a couple custom knife makers. And at that point, I didn't know many Australian custom makers. So,
and how long ago was this?
This was probably 8 years ago or so.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So back then, actually, there probably wasn't anywhere near as many makers anyway.
No. There was only probably 4 or 5 full-time makers, and they might have done maybe 10 or 20 kitchen knives combined between them. So it wasn't like everybody was saying, go to talk to American custom makers, and I ended up ordering myself a knife. It was beautiful. It had a beautiful Damascus, beautiful handle, and knife came in. I'm like, it is beautiful, but it doesn't cut. And it was thick behind the edge, and I've been waiting for like months for this purchase, and I was excited. Came in and like, okay, it looks good, but it's not doing the job. So I contacted the guy, and I'm explaining him, like we've been exchanging emails back and forth, and I noticed I know what the end product should be. I don't know how to get there, but I know what I should be having at the end. So I said to myself, like, I want to make my own knives because I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I had an idea about how to make it, but never done it. And another thing is, until I started making knives probably 5-6 years ago, I haven't had used a power tool.
Yes.
So I had zero experience in power tools. Like many of you guys who might be in doing like metalworking or boiler making, things like that. Yeah, I got none of it. The first time I used drill press, I used a drill, and my wife, she was showing me how to put the drill bit on. It was like, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to put the drill bits. She's like, yeah, that's not how you do it. It was embarrassing, but I caught up.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. So I took a class from Keith Flutter, and this was probably 6 years ago. And on the way back driving from Keith's house, I knew this was going to turn more than just a hobby. I knew it. I was like, I felt like guilt because I was a chef. I loved my craft, and all my time off I was dedicating for my chefing. I was looking at, but I knew like I had the second gig.
Yeah,
knife making was my side.
It begins.
Yeah, it begins, and I start buying equipment. And back then I had a 1.2 to 1.5 meter garden shed.
Yeah, right.
So I made knives in that shed for like 2 years.
Yeah, wow.
And that was probably my first 30-40 knives were made in there.
Yeah, wow. It's like a cupboard.
It's a cupboard. And my first knives I made with the little palm sander.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, palm sander. And it was a nightmare because first of all, has no power, and the second you put it on, it just stalls. And if you come with a wrong angle, like it just spits the sandpaper, and all of a sudden the sandpaper is flying in the neighbor's yard.
Yeah, that's right.
You're trying to fish it out from their yard. So then I got myself a multi-tool, and I started making better knives faster because multi-tool was a lot better than a palm sander. But then you realize, multi-tool is good, but I'm burning my edges because I don't have my variable speed.
Yeah.
Then I bought the variable speed grinder, and this was, I think, year after I saw Keith, and I did another course with Keith that was about forging. Then right after that, I contacted Bill Burke and I went to US. I did a course with Bill Burke about how to do semi and Damascus. Then I visited another guy, Randy Haas, who's based in who's based in Michigan. So I did a Damascus course with him, and after that, it became like I was getting custom orders. It became like almost like a part-time job.
Yeah, wow.
And that was 5 years ago. And it just custom orders took off. I kept getting more orders, and the wait list got to a year, and I was looking like I was doing okay as a chef. Like we won chef's hat, and
yeah,
I thought my food was okay, but I was getting more recognition as a knife maker than a chef. So, and also with having 2 young kids, and I was thinking maybe I should be focusing on knife making.
Yeah, working from home.
Work from home, and
Yep.
and when we moved to this house, my priority was to have a big shed that I can have all of my gear. And before I became a full-time maker, I had my power hammer, I had my kiln, I had my forge, and all of that stuff was set. So it wasn't a tough decision to become a full-time maker. So everything was laid out. Like I was lucky, I had my client base, I had my shop ready, and last year around April, and I told the boss, like, look, I'll be making knives.
2018? 2017 it was, wasn't it?
Ooh, 18 now.
We're 19 now. So how long have you been full-time for?
18, 1.5 years.
1.5 years.
1.5 years.
Yeah, wow, okay. And so obviously you had already set up all the tools, you had a workshop ready to go. It wasn't like you now needed to invest a heap of money to become full-time.
Yeah.
You were sort of there already.
Because slowly I gathered all the tools. Like at that point when I became full-time maker, I had 2 grinders. I had my disc grinder, I had another disc grinder I was using for handles and things like that. I had my dust extraction, although it doesn't work perfectly. You can tell by the by the state of my shop. And I had my 2 drill presses and band saws and all that gear. It was there.
Cool. So let's touch on that a little bit then, tools. So for someone who's making a few knives and they're thinking they probably want to start or go full-time in the next year or 2, do you feel that people need a power hammer and need a kiln and need that sort of stuff to really get going? Or is there a place for people who are making kitchen knives, let's say, without that?
So, yes and no. First of all, what do you want to make? Let's say you want to make kitchen knives. Okay. When I bought my power hammer 3 years ago, my idea was to make my own semi billets. But last year or so, semi billets became so readily available, and it kind of beat the purpose of it. So I can make my own stainless steel carbon clad semi, but I can also buy it from high quality, from Takefu Steel or from Hitachi for a lot cheaper, and to be honest, even better product that has no D-lams or anything. So you don't have to have a power hammer. Yes, if you're forging your steel, power hammer helps a lot. Because I'm not getting any younger. Nobody is. Nobody is. And you can forge a lot faster, a lot more efficient with the power hammer, but there's nothing wrong with saying, look, I want to make kitchen knives, but I want to do stock removal. There's nothing wrong with it. The reason that I got myself all the tools was I got myself a kiln because I want to be doing 100% all of my work. I want to be in charge of my heat treatment. I don't want to be waiting for the sandy heat treatment and coming back. And also, if you're doing, let's say, if you're doing a differential heat treated knives, you need to be doing your own heat treatment. And if you want to do stainless knives, high grade stainless powdered metallurgy steels, you need to be doing your heat treatment and check it, and also see how much you can push the boundaries of those steels. I mean, you can send it heat treatment offsite and they'll heat treat it, but they're going to be a lot more conservative in terms of the hardness.
Right.
So they'll give you a hardened blade. But if you have the tools to check your hardness, and if you have the tools to do all of your hardening and liquid nitrogen and all that, you can see you can experiment. You can see
of course.
what to get most out of the steels.
Yeah, get a bit more out of it
Yeah.
because you can spend time testing it and that sort of
If
thing.
somebody wants to get into kitchen knives, and I will say the first thing to do is you need to get a grinder. Okay, you need to have a powerful grinder that has a variable speed. And the thing is, let's say you bought a grinder and all of a sudden you don't feel like making knives. Okay, you can sell any kind of knife making equipment without any loss.
Yeah, pretty
Like
much.
they don't depreciate. I mean, you can tell from the animals. You can buy a grinder, you can use it, and if you feel like, look, I want to give up on it, you can sell it pretty much for what you paid for. First thing to get is a decent grinder that has a variable speed. After that, if you feel like forging, then you're going to think about getting an anvil. But I will say to everybody, get a grinder, work on grinding, send it offsite for heat treatment initially. Yep. Then once you feel like, look, this is something I want to take it more seriously and I'm going to pursue as more than a passion, more like a work, then you can think about getting your kiln and all that. But power hammer is more like a luxury.
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury.
Oh, plenty of people make amazing knives without a power hammer.
Oh yeah, definitely. There are a lot of guys who do a great job without in forging. There are a lot of great stock removal guys.
Oh, amazing stock removal. And there is this thing where people believe stock removal isn't as good or whatever, but it's a different art, isn't it? I mean, you're finishing the same product at the end, but you look at people like, what's his name, Scott Reynolds.
Yeah.
He makes amazing stock removal knives.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job. Does virtually no forging. In fact, doesn't sell any forged knives as far as I know. Mm-hmm. And often I wonder whether you can forge, but if you don't know about normalizing and you don't know about the correct heat treatment process, you could quite easily end up with a much worse blade from being heat treated than you could by buying a piece of monosteel, grinding it to a knife shape and heat treating it. So in fact, stock removal might make a better knife for a large percentage of people.
Yeah, if you're making a mistake with your heat treatment or with your forging temperature, if that's wrong, you're not making a better product. Just because it's forged, it doesn't mean any better. So you can, as you said, you can definitely make it, you can damage the knife, you can mess it up for good. What forging becomes advantageous is you are in control of how much material you get out of it, or you get out of it.
Yeah.
So
you'd be more economic with the
more economical,
material.
but only if you're doing a lot of forging. So if somebody wants to forge one knife a week, never get a power hammer. But power hammer or forging becomes more economical if you are forging 8 knives at a time.
Of course.
7, 8 knives. Then it pays off because you're using less steel. Another thing is with the forging, when you forge your knives, especially with the carbon steel, you can come very close to the final shape, final dimensions. Later on, I'll show you some of the knives I have that forged state. You can tell, like, all you have to do is, they're already hardened, all you have to do is just remove the outer layer a little bit, get rid of the decarb, and you're at the edge.
Yeah.
There's not much to be ground.
Yeah,
left.
right, okay. Very, very close to final,
very close
final
to.
finish. Yeah, okay. So you've bought a lot of these tools because of the fact you want to be able to get it all in-house.
Yes.
There's always going to be processes where you have to realise that somebody is going to be able to do a better job than you, or it's not economically viable. So you don't do your own stabilising, do you?
I don't do all my stabilizing.
No.
I mean, my shed is not as big, and I thought about it, but I realized I'd rather pay someone who does a good job in stabilizing, buy a better product than me doing it. And also, you're running out of time. you can't be doing everything else. You can't be doing all the stuff in-house. Stabilizing, I'm happy to outsource it. I'm happy to buy premium blocks. They're stabilized versus me trying to keep up with the cactus shoes and pressure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you do a lot of stabilizing, and I don't have the luxury to be able to. I cannot keep up with it.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Oh, there's a lot of work in it, but I sort of went into it because I was a bit like you. I wanted to do all of it, and I come from a building and tools background. But even with me, someone who knows what I'm doing, you start off because you think it's going to be cheaper because you make your own blocks, and you suddenly realise you're $2,000 into stabilising gear, and you probably $2,000 would have bought you a lot of stabilised blocks.
I thought knife making was going to be cheaper than buying knives.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Guess how that turned out.
Yeah, that's right. I had a person say exactly that to me today. Oh, I want to go on a course to make my own kitchen knives so that I don't have to buy them. Which I laughed and said, good luck with that. I suppose it all depends on what course you go on, but you're better off just buying the knives in the long run.
I learned the hard way.
You learn the hard way. But you are getting some real notoriety around the world. People are we hear about you on the Knife Talk podcast, and people recognise you. You go to Blade every year, or the last couple of years you've gone to Blade?
I've gone twice.
Yeah, okay. Tell me a little bit about how the Americans are seeing the Australians at the moment. They appear to be recognising that there's some good stuff going on here, but you've seen it firsthand. Can you tell me a bit about the American sort of community and how they feel about us?
So in terms of kitchen knife scene, Australia is thriving. Australia is doing great. And also has to do with our approach, because when you go to Blade Show, it's mostly about buoys and tacticals and switchblades and all those pocket knives. But when you go to Sydney Knife Show, you see 50% is kitchen knives.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
definitely,
a lot of people are into cooking, are into finer food, and they're trying to invest in the better quality tools. So kitchen knives are just now picking up. I mean, there have been a lot of good kitchen knife makers in the US too, but kitchen knives are now getting more popular in the US.
Right, are they? Okay.
They're just getting, and now like a lot of the guys are now starting to make kitchen knives.
Right.
So Australia is thriving. Australia is doing great in terms of the kitchen knives.
Okay. And do you think the market's starting to pick up there because people see makers like you making kitchen knives and doing really well out of it, and the fact that you've gone over the last couple of years and you've sold out within the first day, right?
This year I sold out in the first day, and the year before I came back with few pieces, but it was all right.
Yeah, not a lot. But people are seeing that, and I do think that there's something to do with the fact the average person uses culinary knives.
Yes.
But the average person doesn't use a hunting knife. So
it doesn't, and it was interesting. My first year on my Blade Show, I went to Blade Show like the same mentality as a kitchen knife in the Sydney Show. Sydney Show, a lot of people are looking for the knives that they're going to use at home. Yeah. Smaller stainless knives.
Yeah.
And that's what I brought to Blade.
Yeah.
I brought smaller stainless knives that everybody can use at their home. And all of those smaller stainless knives, I brought it back home.
Wow.
Yeah. Everybody bought the larger chef knives.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Huh. Very interesting.
So this year I brought all the large chef knives.
Yeah, and they disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared.
Awesome. Okay, so you are very well known for your integrals. Mm-hmm. You make beautiful integrals. I want to chat with you about that a little bit. We've got some examples to look at.
I got some stages of like how the raw material looks, first stages of forging, after heat treatment, and what I do and what steps. And I also have a couple of finished projects.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So what sort of stock do you start out with for your integrals?
So it depends on if I'm making a monosteel or if I'm making a Damascus. If I'm making a monosteel, I use 50-100. I use the bearings that come from the mining equipment, but that's been already chemically analyzed and tested.
So you know exactly what it is.
I know it's a 50-100. It's not
some random
steel. It's not like, oh, my mate said it's from. I got a mate who says it's 50-100. No, it's tested and it's 50-100.
Okay, awesome. So a couple of last things, Mert. If someone wanted to get a knife off you, how do they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Tansu Knives on Instagram, and also Facebook, Tansu Knives. And I have my website, tansuknives.com, and I try to make extra knives once a month, and I send an email blast and let people know I have available knives, and first come, serve first.
So that's a non-ordered knife?
Yeah, that's not. That's not. Cool. I haven't been taking customs because the custom list got to a year, and I don't want to take any further. And a year is plenty now. So
okay. So that's what I was going to ask next. If someone did order a knife, how long are they waiting? You're not doing it now.
I really don't want to do custom orders because not that I enjoy making them, but the list got to a year, and I don't want to tell people to you're going to be waiting 1 year and a month, 1 year, 2 months. So if once it comes to a more manageable timeline, and I'll be opening the list.
Right.
Hopefully.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. My first mistakes were I started with the stock that was slightly thinner than it's supposed to be, which becomes this. So when you look at this one, you see like the heel has been established. I have my bolster here.